For those of you who don't know, I'm Sarah Olivieri. I'm a #1 international best-selling author, former executive director, and creator of the Impact Method. And I love helping nonprofit leaders change the way they run their organization so they can make a bigger impact without getting overwhelmed or burning out. But sometimes people come to me, they're already overwhelmed and burned out. And often one of the culprits is scarcity. This title, which I totally made up, Return on Scarcity, ROS, which is a play on ROI, return on investment, because those people who are not responding to scarcity are usually thinking about what they're going to get, not what they're going to lose, and they like to think about return on investment. Unfortunately, many people in the nonprofit space are struggling with scarcity, and so they are responding to that. So let me jump right in. I did a quick search on scarcity and scarcity mindset, and there's all these things that come up. Mostly it's around mindset. I did search mindset in my search terms, but it's talking about the way we think and the cycle of the way we think. And I just want to challenge that for a moment, because I'd like to say this doesn't begin with a mindset. Certainly a mindset is part of the problem, but that's not really what it is. So in this training, one of the things I hope to do is kind of dispel for you some of the thought that we're trying to get rid of a mindset. And I'm going to give you a trick to get out of this scarcity loop, which is kind of a mindset trick, but it might not be what you're thinking. So what is it really? What's really happening in this scarcity cycle? So I'm going to pull up a few things here. What I think it really begins with is this. It's resource scarcity. You actually don't have enough money or enough resources. And that's where this problem begins. And then this is interesting, and this is something that they have found in MRI studies, is that this resource scarcity actually causes increased cognitive load. What does that mean? It means it's like your brain is working overtime. If you ever had a computer that was really working hard and like the fans are turning on and it's starting to go and it starts to slow way down and it's like going tick, maybe it starts going tick, 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 and you start going, oh my God, my computer's going to die. That's increased cognitive load, but that's what's happening in your brain when you've got the resource scarcity. So what happens when you have increased cognitive load? You get decreased cognitive function. And they've actually demonstrated this in MRI studies. Your brain stops working as well. Just like when your computer is like way overloaded, it can no longer do the 3-4 tasks all at once. And you end up having to quit a bunch of programs in order to get the one thing finished off before you can do everything else. And what happens when we have decreased cognitive function? Well, we could say this in a few different ways. I didn't want to say poor choices, which I think a lot of the literature uses. I'd like to say we make less strategic choices, because sometimes the choices have a certain logic to them in the short term, but they're not really choices that move us towards where we're trying to go. So this cycle starts with resource scarcity. And once we start making these less strategic choices because of our decreased cognitive function, then we often end up with even fewer resources. And so we have more resource scarcity and the cycle continues. So what do we get with this return on scarcity? What happens as we make that loop? What's the result for our organization? Well, there's a lot of things that can happen, but I want to clue you into some, 4 major things that I see happening for nonprofits. And the first is missed opportunities. Sometimes people call this opportunity cost, but basically you don't take action and then you miss out on what something that would have helped you, but you just don't do it. And that creates a more loss because you had a chance to gain and you didn't take it because it felt scary. And we're going to talk about why it feels scary in just a moment. You pay more for things. So you might buy things in a small quantity and pay more per item. I can tell you that as a nonprofit consultant, I have literally had the thought that it is so labor intensive to communicate and offer my services to nonprofits that I may actually have to raise my prices to offset the additional time and energy it takes. So this is definitely happening that you think you're saving, but oftentimes you're actually paying more. You purchase below the minimum need for resources for success, the minimum need for success. So this could apply to a lot of things, but for most things, you need a certain amount for it to be effective. And if you have less than that amount, then it's not really going to be effective. In a more complex scenario, this is absolutely true for marketing and fundraising. Below a certain amount invested in fundraising, you're not going to be doing the kinds of activities or the volume of activities you need to be doing for it to actually get the money back that you should be getting. For dollar in, you should get a certain number of dollars out. But if you spend too little, you might not get a return on that. So what happens is when you purchase below the minimum that you need for success, you actually don't get a good result. So another more simple example is you might try to save money in your scarcity, reduced cognitive position and buy used computers, or you get computers donated. But maybe those computers don't actually have the power that you need to do what you need to do. And so you spent money already. It wasn't a lot of money, but you didn't get the function that you actually needed. In order to get the computer that does the work that you need it to do, you needed to actually spend a little more so that your money is not wasted. And by spending less, you actually wasted money. And the fourth thing, and I see this costing the most money of all, is when you spend too little or you invest in your resources in the wrong way, or often it's just too few resources, you're not putting enough in, you are slow. And in the for-profit world, people say all the time is money, but it's super true. And how is it money? Well, when you go slowly, it takes more people's time. If it took a month to do a project instead of a week, you paid somebody for a month instead of a week, and that's a lot more money. So that results to a higher cost. If you are slow in making a decision about maybe letting someone go, or maybe you're slow in making a decision about giving somebody a raise, and you might have all of these come into play. You might be spending too little on them to really get them to give you their highest priority attention. They might leave and go to another organization. That's a huge missed opportunity. And they might work more slowly while they are getting paid less because they might have other priorities. Or worse, you might be paying people so little that you are pushing them into a scarcity situation where they have reduced cognitive abilities to work for you. And that is probably going on in your organization right now, is that you are underpaying people and putting all of your staff or many of your staff into this overdrive on their cognitive load, which is really going to multiply this scarcity cycle effect. So what do we do about this, right? I hope that by now you are agreeing with me that this is not good. These things are not good. You don't want to pay more for things than you need to. You don't want to be missing the opportunities. You don't want to be throwing money away by spending too little, even though that might sound counterintuitive. And you certainly don't want to be spending more money because you're moving slow, not to mention you don't get the results as quickly. But how do we get out of this, especially if we become aware that we have a reduced cognitive function? So I'd like to highlight, well, how do we get out of this? Well, we can't just presto changeo have resources, right? So we can't eliminate the scarcity of resources that we're actually facing. And we can't do anything about the increase in cognitive load that that's causing, because that's just a natural response of our brains to the situation we're in. And we can't just say, poof, presto changeo, I'll have increased cognitive ability. It's not as simple as just having some more coffee or taking some vitamins. I don't think you're going to magically get your brain to overcome this reaction to having increased cognitive load. And that really leaves us with, well, can we make strategic choices even if all three things here are in play? And I would like to say, yes, you can. And the reason why you can is you can understand that this is in play, and you can find another person or some research or evidence that tells you the choice to make. And you have to remind yourself, and the beauty of our human brains is we can kind of pull ourselves out of our situation and understand the kind of situation we're in, even if we can't do anything about it. And so you can say, given this situation, I can't really trust my own ability to make a good decision or know a good decision if it whacked me in the face. And so I'm going to seek the guidance of somebody who's not in my scarcity situation and get them to make the choice recommendation for me. And then I'm going to follow it, knowing that if I'm like, I don't know, I'm scared, that's a reaction to my situation, not a reaction to their choice recommendation being bad. Now, to kind of drive this point home, I want to turn to my thinking friend. He's not my friend in real life, but if you know Daniel Kahneman, I would like to meet him, so please send him my way. He wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. He is a Nobel Prize winning economist. He specializes in behavioral economics. And so he has studied a lot around how we make decisions. And so the first bit of wisdom, and Thinking Fast and Slow is quite a long book, there's a lot of wisdom in it, is this, that confidence, right? Because so much when we're dealing with scarcity mindset, that what do we feel in our bodies? We're feeling fear. And fear is that lack of confidence, right? And so, but confidence, he says, is a feeling which reflects the coherence of the information and the cognitive ease of processing it, right? So let's put the coherence piece aside. What this is saying is, because scarcity of resources has caused we don't have cognitive ease. We have the opposite, right? Which means we're not going to feel confident because we've got this cognitive overload. Our brains are kind of in overdrive and they're not processing very well. So we should know that the fear itself is a product of the reaction that our brains are having, not the result of being faced with potentially super risky decisions or choices. That's the first thing I want you to know, is that the fear has to do with the cognitive overload in your brain, not the real risk of the situation you're in. The next thing I want to bring to you from Thinking Fast and Slow is intelligence, right? This is our intelligence. This is our ability to get out of this loop, is not only the ability to reason, It is also the ability to find relevant material in memory and to deploy attention when needed, right? So in our scarcity loop, our ability to reason is shot. We can't trust it. But we still have this other kind of intelligence, and it's our ability to recall things from memory, or we can even go outside of our own brains and get information from another source. And we can say, we're not going to, we can literally tell ourselves, once we know that we're in this loop, that we should not trust our own choices because we're in this state and we need to get the information about what to do from a different place. And we need to trust that for reasons that don't have to do with our own emotions, but maybe because it's a trusted source. So that is how we're essentially going to hack the cycle and get out of it. So for those of you who are like, oh my God, I need help making a decision. I'm in scarcity mindset and I'd like to get someone's opinion about what to do who's not in a scarcity loop. You are welcome to schedule a call with me. Now, for those of you who are watching on the recording, I'm going to say so long, and I'm going to turn my attention to any questions we have live here today.